Hey, what's going on, fam? So just a quick short video. I want to talk about the Ken and Karen incident. Their actual names are the McCloskeys, who they were in their home and there was some protesters, some Black Lives Matter protesters who were attempting to go in front of the mayor's house of St. Louis, the mayor who lives in their same community. These people who came out with the guns, and you should see the image up on your screen. It's like a jokey movie poster image. And most of you should know what happened, but basically, long story short, the protesters were trying to protest in front of the mayor's house. They were marching towards the mayor's house. Apparently, this was a private gated community. So, as the protesters were marching towards the gated community to confront the protesters, to confront the mayor, the protesters were Ken and Karen, or at least that's what they're called. Their actual names, or their last name at least, is the McCloskeys. I think it's Mark and Patricia McCloskey. Approach these protesters with guns, and under the fear, the so-called narrative that they were in fear for their lives. And a lot of people are making jokes about this because what social media has started to do and what our culture has started to do is we tried to make jokes out of these Kens and these so-called Kens and Karens. Even the nicknames Ken, Karen, it's all a big joke. And I want to say to black people, this stuff is not funny. When you have these white supremacists out here approaching you with guns, calling the police on you, trying to get you murdered, it's not a joke. Because this stuff really results in death, and that's what these people are trying to justify. That's why they came up with the story that they were scared for their lives. Even though, regardless if you're scared of your life, you cannot, first of all, it's illegal to brandish a gun at someone. That's number one. It's illegal under Missouri law to brandish a gun at somebody. That's number one. Number two, not only is it illegal to brandish a gun at someone, and let me read the statute. So it's Missouri statute 571.030. And number four, they list all the ways that if you have a gun, it's a crime. And number four on this list is if you exhibit in the presence of one or more persons any weapon readily capable of lethal use in an angry or threatening manner. Now, if you see the photos of them, it's undeniable that they were using the weapons in an angry and threatening manner. Now, the only thing that would justify them using the gun in an angry or threatening manner is if they could state that they that the people were trespassing on their property, basically violating the castle doctrine. But here's the castle doctrine in Missouri. It should be noted, and here's it's section 53.036. It should be noted that as used in section 563-036, .036, premises is usually understood to constitute the house, the dwelling, and not broadly to include all of the defender's property. Section 53.011 defines premises as any building, inhabitable structure, or any real property. Although this definition encompasses any real property, the cases interpreting the defense of premises statute usually construe premises in terms of dwelling or house. So these people were not on their yard. Even if they were on the sidewalk, that's not considered your property. They have to be in your yard. But even your yard, it's not considered violating the castle doctrine. So you cannot approach people violently with guns unless they are basically at your door. If they are at your door, yes, you can open the door with guns and threaten people. But if they are not at your door with a gun, not at your door, then you don't have a right to come out with guns threatening them. That means that you're in violation of the law. Now, we know that the law is based on race, or is enforced based on race, and that's why this Ken and this Karen haven't been charged yet. But fam, the main thing I want to talk about is how the white supremacists come up with narratives, because as I explained in a recent video, actually in my last video, words matter in white supremacy. This is why the white supremacists make sure to use certain words. Because if words didn't matter, then the white supremacists would just do what they want. They wouldn't come up with an excuse. They would just say, I'm white and you black. That's the only explanation you need. But they know they can't say that. They know they can't get away with that if they do it that way. That's why they have to control the narrative in a certain way. They have to justify. I talked about this in my last video. They always even back during slavery, when they definitely had no legal repercussions for killing a black person, raping a black person, doing whatever they wanted to a black person. There was no legal repercussions. But even during the times when there were no legal repercussions, no matter what your excuse was, there were no legal repercussions for murdering or doing harm to a black person or stealing from them or doing anything to them that would be illegal to do to a white person. They still came up with excuses and justifications. Fam, this stuff is dangerous. This is how they justify killing people. That's why they make sure to come up with narratives so that even if you disagree or even if you know that the narrative is BS, the fact that not enough black people are willing to shut down the narratives off rip and just cut to the chase and call people white supremacists, which is what they are, this is what allows white supremacy to continue. This is what let white supremacists feel emboldened to do things like they did to Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, because they know they have an arsenal of narratives, of words that will cover and justify for them. A lot of white supremacists online are coming up with narratives to defend Ken and Karen because they want to be able to do the same thing and justify harming a black person based off of these false narratives. So they're coming up with narratives like, oh, they broke the gate. It doesn't matter if they broke the gate. Let the police come handle that. That's number one. Number two, you can't prove that it was the protesters that broke the gate. It could have been anybody. It could have been somebody that lives there that, was trying to get in there at night. I don't know what hours the guard has, but obviously if they were able to break the gate, the guard wasn't there. Otherwise, why aren't we hearing any stories about the guard trying to stop them or the guard calling the police when they so-called broke the gate? So we can't prove who broke that gate. We know how white supremacists do. They could have broke the gate just to be in order to be able to blame the protesters. And then they're talking about, oh, they were trespassing. No, they were not. That's why I read the law to you. They were not trespassing. You don't have a right to approach people with guns just because they're in your neighborhood. I don't care if it's a private gated community or not. You don't own the street. You don't own the sidewalk, even in a private gated community. End of story. So, fam, I understand mocking these people to some degree, but at the same time, I really think that black people should chill out on that because this is not a joke. It's not funny. It's very serious, and this is what white supremacists use. They use these kind of incidents in the narrative surrounding them in order to justify murdering you, and it's worked. That's why all these cops have gotten off up until recently. Also, all these white supremacists who are pretending all of a sudden now they understand why black people were protesting. Even right-wing protesters, everybody wanted to unanimously all of a sudden agree that George Floyd's murder was so horrific. But what about Trayvon Martin? What about Tamir Rice? And these murders were caught on tape also. Why were these any less horrific? It's because the white supremacists are once again using words to practice deception so they can pretend to not be racist for this one incident, so then they can have cover to go right back to being racist for any other incident. So that's why I also made that video about peep the silence of the Blue Lives Matter crowd, but don't fall for it. And a lot of the white supremacists, they're right back on the Blue Lives Matter, back the badge crap again. They're right back on that train. The same train that was the frame for justifying the murder for George Floyd. I blame every white supremacist, every Sean Hannity, every Rush Limbaugh who claimed to be so horrified by George Floyd's death. If you were out there repeating all lives matter and back the badge and back the blue and talking about how you disagree with Colin Kaepernick saying that black men should not be murdered because they're black, running around talking about how you disagree, those were the people that were responsible for killing George Floyd just as much as the officer Derek Chauvin, because the reason why he felt emboldened to do that from in the beginning in the first damn place was because of all the All Lives Matter, back the badge, Blue Lives Matter crowd that he thought would be there to cover for him. It's just that it didn't happen this time. So again, people should be held accountable for their words. That's why I'm on Sambo's next, the Sambos who want to run around talking about black on black crime. That's why I'm on their neck. And we all need to be on these white supremacists' neck We all need to be on these Sambos' neck as well, but even more so than them, the white supremacists who they're working for, we need to be on their neck because they're the ones who control the narratives and create the narratives that give green lights to these race soldiers to kill us with impunity. They are the ones who do it. And black people's failure to understand how to use the correct words is one of the biggest reasons why we have not been able to topple white supremacy. Because if we just use the right words and we just cut to the chase, a lot of these white supremacists, they would have no choice but to either comply with our words in order to show that they're not racist, or they would just have to expose themselves as racist. End of story. We can control the narratives if we wanted to, if we had the willpower to. If we were willing to just cut to the chase and call any person who's non-black, who's against reparations and anti-black racist, trust me, it wouldn't be very long until we had enough control of the narrative to make reparations a serious conversation. But because we want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt and run around and talk in circles, and we want to sit up here and explain to everybody what Black Lives Matter means, even though they know good and damn well what it means, because we're so interested in wasting time trying to get the approval and appease these white supremacists, the approval of these white supremacists and trying to appease them. That's why we're sitting here arguing for 3 hours about what Black Lives Matter means, and then they go on to kill the next George Floyd and the next Trayvon Martin and the next Tamir Rice and the next Breonna Taylor and the next Sandra Bland. This is why they're able to do that, because we sit up here and we will sit up here and waste time arguing with them about what Black Lives Matter means, instead of just cutting to the chase and saying, you're a white supremacist, you're a racist. End the story. You're a demonic white supremacist. I'm not arguing with you about reparations. I'm not arguing with you about Black Lives Matter. But anyway, fam, that's all I wanted to say. This is the lesson that black people should draw from the Ken and Karen incident is, first of all, laws are enforced based on race because Ken and Karen committed an illegal act. And number two, understand that part of the reason why they are able to get away with the laws being enforced based on race is because not enough black people are willing to use the correct words and cut to the chase and cut out the white supremacist narratives. But anyway, fam, that's another video. Like, share, subscribe, and peace.